On this episode, I'm going to talk about 8 reasons why I think Jonathnan Majors should be talking right now to the media. And I mean talking a lot to the media.
There's no kicking the tires or anything like that.
And if not to the media, if he's got his own social media channels, if he's got an Instagram account, if he's got a YouTube channel, yeah, you should be talking on that right now if you're Jonathnan Majors. Your entire reputation, your entire career is on the line. And you're silent? Why?
Okay, so your career is just going bananas right now. How does it feel?
I would bet that it's because his attorneys are telling him to shut up, because that's what attorneys do. And really, it can make sense, right? You have a criminal case going, but actually not really anymore. You have a criminal case going. That's over. The gag order is lifted. You can talk now. The attorneys can talk now. Your PR people can talk now. So the question is, why isn't anybody talking? One of the things to understand really clearly is the media age that we live in. We don't live in the media age of the fax machine, not even really of the email. We live in the media age of anybody can write anything on Twitter, and it's out there and it can destroy your reputation. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, they have absolutely no liability because of Section 230. I'm not going to go into the whole big Section 230 discussion right now, but just say that social media platforms have no risk when somebody writes something defamatory that damages somebody's reputation. I'm not trying to say that the major story started because of a defamatory statement on social media, but the point is there's information out there that's defamatory. That is career threatening, right? And I'm talking about before the verdict came in on December 18, 2023. That has to be addressed. That has to be dealt with. He has to talk about that. And I don't understand why people in these moments don't talk. I really don't. I can understand some of the advice in some of the situations, but not in this situation, because the evidence is actually on Majors' side. If, in fact, the evidence wasn't on his side, that would be a really good reason to shut up. It would also be a really good reason to shut up if you were guilty of something. Because if you're guilty, the truth is always going to out. And the truth is always going to be the most important factor in anything that happens. What was true and what was false. And so lying is never going to work. And BSing is never going to work. So knowing that, in this case, he's got video proof that helps him out. So he should be talking. He should be explaining. He should be saying, hey, this is what was going on. This is what happened. This is what started it. This is who this was. This is who that was. This is why I did this. This is why I stayed at a hotel. This is why I was confused. I got locked out of my place and all of a sudden I'm getting arrested. I mean, he should be talking. So the facts and the evidence in the case are on his side. So why wouldn't he be talking? The third thing that I think about here is the media. Really, you have to understand, I think John Majors and most people who have been watching the media, particularly over the last few years, I'd say the last, 10 years, would understand that the media really doesn't care about anything other than traffic, okay? They care about driving traffic to a website and having ads clicked. That's it. Whatever does that, they will kowtow to. In this moment, the person with the bullhorn really is John Majors. I mean, he is the person who can attract so much attention. When he walked out of the courthouse that last time on December 18, he didn't say anything. And there was a ton of media out there. Imagine what would have happened had he said something. Even if it was one sentence, like, I know I'm an innocent man. I'm sorry the jury didn't see it that way, but I'm hopeful on appeal that the truth will come out. And then maybe you don't say anything else. That would get played every place. If he had said that, everybody is going to, because the media at the end of the day, it's all about the clicks. It's all about how much web traffic can be driven, how a headline can be written in the most salacious way to get the most clicks. Everybody understands that, but that train rolls in both directions. It rolls and runs in both directions, and it can run for him if you use it the right way. I mean, there's no doubt that the media is biased against him. The media has been biased against Black folks in general since the inception of the printed press, okay? Specifically Black men in these types of situations where you have some sort of a legal matter. I mean, we see this all the time, where they will throw up the most salacious headlines in the most negative ways. A lot of that has to do with the demographics of these newsrooms, which of course are not, let's say they're not diverse with regard to Black men. Okay, and so there isn't anybody black and male in these conversations to sort of lean in and say, wait a minute, what about this angle? What about that? What about thinking about it this way? That's been the way of the media forever. There's no surprise here. And I know a lot of people talk specifically about Rolling Stone, I think for very good reason, but Rolling Stone is not the only one. I mean, there's no question that Rolling Stone was leaning heavily against John Majors this entire time. The fourth thing I thought about is if you don't talk in this situation, and you're in a situation like John Majors is in, a crisis situation, the media will define you. They will define you. If you don't define yourself and you don't define what's going on, they will define what is going on. And it doesn't matter how they do it. They're going to figure out a way to do it. And thinking about Rolling Stone, the famous piece with we talked to 40 people, and this alleged abuse has been going on for years. Look, I'm from a family of people who do a lot of law enforcement related stuff. Okay, my father on down. In fact, congratulations today to Judge Fields. I have a judge in my family I'm very proud of, who was sworn in today and robed today in New York. And so I've always been a big believer in evidence and due process and procedure, evidentiary procedure. If people aren't under oath, if they're not in some way, if there's no penalty of perjury and penalty for lying, it's really hard for me to believe anything. And I am the type of person that if, somebody tells you that the sun is shining, you pull back the shade. There's no reason to believe anybody face value. We've got a world of technology here where we've got text and we've got email and we've got video. And in this particular case, and each case is different, in this particular specific case, there was a lot of email, there was a lot of video, there was a lot of text. There was no reason to take anything face value. You could see for yourself what went on. Now, how you interpret events may be another thing, might be different one person to another, but still, video is video, audio is audio. And when I hear that somebody has called the police, that stayed in a hotel to avoid the person that now claims that they're somehow the victim of something, that makes me suspicious. He stayed at a hotel. He avoided her. He ran down the street. He gets home. She locks him out of his own place, and somehow he gets arrested. It makes no sense on its face. By the way, one of the best people on YouTube analyzing the John Majors case, Kat on YouTube, has a GoFundMe going on because she's paying for a FOIA request to the New York court system in Manhattan for all of the transcripts of the Jonathnan Majors case. $2,500. So she's doing a GoFundMe to pay for it. I certainly contributed. I will encourage everybody to do the same. She, of course, will share that document with everybody. And it's amazing, isn't it? They block the cameras in the courtroom and then they charge the public for what really should be a public document. But at any rate, that is on GoFundMe. Everybody go donate. The GoFundMe link is in the description of this video. Any amount helps, doesn't matter whether it's $5, $10, whatever it is. Let's get to 2,511. Thank you. You have to fill the box in this media age with your info. And that's sort of my point number 5. You know who does this really well? I hate to admit it, but it's true. Donald Trump. Donald Trump is really good. He's been dealing with the media for almost into his entire life, and he's learned how to fill the box with his info. His info can be completely false, it can be complete lying and complete nonsense, and he'll still fill the box with it. And you know what? The media a lot of times will just report it. Remember the media mainstream media getting completely wrapped around the axle about, should we call him a liar? We don't know if we should call him a liar. That should tell you how easy it is to just get your information out by just telling them. And they typically act as Xerox machines. Let's face it. They typically act as Xerox machines or deliverers of the information. And that's it. I mean, they're not really doing any discerning, investigative anything. So with that, John Majors could actually communicate using them, even though it is true that most of the media certainly was not on his side at all and did not report the facts in any way that would have been favorable to him. There's no doubt about that. The other reason that he really should tell his side and talk is we do live in a media age of 24/7 journalism. There is no news cycle anymore. Everything is 24/7. Everything is happening on social media first, and then maybe these media platforms that are mainstream media may or may not catch up to that. Knowing that, again, their appetite for change and news is insatiable, and that is something that has to be kept in the back of your mind if you want to get your side of the story out. Unfortunately, in the world that we live in the United States, John Majors does have an extra hurdle to jump, which of course is that he's a black male, which this is a group that has been vilified in the media from day one, whether it was Hollywood or the mainstream press. We've seen so many examples of that, and I'll throw a few up on the screen. It's pretty obvious that history goes back a very long way in this country.
Stereotypes as a way to put fear in people. If you make us the threat, then you remove our humanity. These are intentional choices to hold us back.
Your life, would you risk that? These kids never been bad. 16 roll around with a big strap. Got him and he died from the impact.
The criminalization of Black people has been an essential.
He has that extra hurdle to climb, and there's no denying that. The thing about it is you have to become an individual person through your story and by telling your story. And the only way to do that is to tell your story and not get worried about how everybody's going to react, and tell them what is going on, what you were thinking when this or that happened. With this type of case, there's a lot to say on that, to say the least. Now, I get that there may be a lot of considerations about not wanting to tick the judge off or not wanting to do this or do that. I don't know why anybody would worry about that. When your entire career, your entire life, and your entire reputation is on the line, you got to go for it. You've got to try to save that. And if the facts are on your side, which in his case they are, there's no reason. Jonathnan Majors' case is a great example of why people need to have their own media platforms. I mean, I've seen a few people who've been accused of stuff that they couldn't get their information out because the media wouldn't report it, and they just had their own platform. They had some gigantic following either on Twitter or Instagram or YouTube or Facebook, and they use that to their advantage, because what happens is the media will report it in a way that's going to get them the most traffic. I actually think that what they've deducted is the stories about exoneration don't really do anything. Stories where, the guy is not the bad actor. I do think that that's something that is being thought out in these newsrooms. Also, I think these newsrooms have incredible amounts of implicit bias by people who don't think they have any implicit bias but have tons of it. Jonathnan Majors is a really good example, though, because there's a lot of evidence in his favor that is very easy to go over. There's just hard evidence there in a way that you typically never, ever have. Incredibly, none of that worked in his favor, and that's where I think implicit bias comes in a huge way. And that implicit bias in our country has been very consistently against Black people, and specifically, even more specifically, against Black men. There's really not that much to say here in terms of the consistency of what we're seeing, and that's why I think it's important. I mean, let's understand, somebody who is an actor on his level has a really good opportunity to have their own social media platform. Or I should say, has a good opportunity to platform themselves on social media. And he might want to think about that, because there's a lot of narratives on his side of the ledger that are never going to get reported by the media that I'm seeing covering him. So it's kind of like you do have to kind of go around them. It's difficult. It takes some building. Somebody like him, though, may not take that much building because he's a known name, and there are people who are very interested in this story. But it's so obvious that people need to have their own platforms really to get their message out, because there's just certain narratives that corporate media is never going to embrace, and particularly when you are in the demographic that he's in. Until next time, good luck. The link, by the way, to the transcripts of this entire case, thanks to Kat, is in the description of this video.